When I finally got diagnosed, they were like, yeah, you're very bipolar. The medicine worked. It was amazing. The good part of that also went away, and I had to systematize that. That was terrifying. My whole life changed. Grandiose goal setting, 80-20 squared, orthodoxy smashing. The easiest way to make money is to do something completely different and smash an orthodoxy.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, Todd Hagopian from Stagnation Assassins is going to answer my most challenging question I want to start with. And that is, can a mental health diagnosis make you a better leader?
I really appreciate that question. I think it's an incredibly important question to be talking about, especially now when anxiety is through the roof for a variety of reasons that I'm sure we'll touch on. But yes, mental health diagnosis can make you a better leader. Not only that, but it should make you a better leader, and it should make the people around them a better leader. All of us read the same 20 books, right? The same 20 leadership books. We all know how to act according to the consultants and the sanitized kind of white paper way that you're supposed to run a business. Everybody knows that. If you really want breakthrough results, you need to have differentiated thinking. So when you're talking about neurodivergent thought, that really does play into how you can become a better leader. We have people like me who are bipolar and have different types of hyperfocus and grandiose goal setting and things that can drive differentiated thinking and differentiated results. You have folks who are OCD who can dive deep into a topic that you wouldn't be able to do and really go deep on it, and you can utilize that. But more importantly than just the neurodivergent folks being important and to the organization and becoming good leaders, people around them need to be able to learn those skills, need to be able to systemize some of the stuff that they do in order to make themselves better leaders. You don't have to be neurodivergent to become a good leader. You have to understand neurodivergency to become a great leader. My message is it's not just about the folks who have neurodivergence. Those folks should become differentiated and breakthrough leaders, but the people around them need to be able to systematize that and learn it and emulate some of those aspects themselves so that they can get out of this 20-book leadership thing that we've kind of developed over time, and now everybody leads the same, and you can't have breakthrough results if that's how you're managing your business.
So I have now 1,000 questions, of course. So let's start sort of at the beginning. I mean, were you always aware that your thought process is different or diverse?
Interestingly, I wasn't. So I went 15 years undiagnosed, so I did not know I had bipolar. I knew that I worked more hours than everybody else and slept less hours than everybody else. That's about the extent of what I knew was wrong, quote unquote, wrong with me. Is I knew there was something different there. You know what I mean? Because I would sleep 2 hours a day for 15 years and I would work. I would basically be obsessively working for the other 22 hours. And when I finally got diagnosed, they were like, yeah, you're very bipolar. You've got a very bipolar. And I went to a couple of doctors and they all agreed. And I took the medicine and the medicine worked. It was amazing. If you don't know bipolar, you get this hypomanic high where you go, and you just got all this energy and you set these major goals and you think outside the box and find ways to hit it. Then you have the bipolar depression that hits usually right after you've set a huge goal or hit a huge goal. And the bipolar depression comes in and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to live up to what I just promised? So all that went away. The problem is the good part of that also went away. Right. And I had to figure out, do I choose between sanity and success? And that was a really big turning point in my life. I had built my entire life around being extremely hyper-focused and hardworking, and I had to systematize that is what I decided. So I kind of hacked my brain, went deep into how I managed when I was bipolar, and tried to systemize different aspects of that. And I can go deeper into that. But essentially, that's what I ended up doing through 4 turnarounds, is systematizing all the different things that had made my management style different, and was able to now put them in a box where I can hand it to people who aren't bipolar, like I was talking about earlier, and really learn how to implement those same systems, because you don't need the neurodivergence. You need that thinking differently portion of it.
Okay, now you go for 15 years. You probably are everybody's best workhorse, if you don't mind me saying that, right? I mean, if I can have a guy who only needs to sleep 2 hours and he can dedicate himself 22 hours a day to my work, that's probably pretty enticing to any person wanting to hire you. So now you're finding out that there is an actual diagnosis. Tell me how you felt at that moment, because I cannot imagine that you were doing a little happy dance and you're going like, "Oh my God, yay." There's probably a bit of relief that you finally know what it is, and then what else is there?
Yep. And so, first of all, I probably wasn't your favorite workhorse because a lot of bad stuff came along with that, right? Like multiple arrests and having trouble with leadership and relationships and stuff like that. There were several ups and downs. It wasn't all good working 22 hours a day. You know what I mean? So, when I
So
first
it was working 10 hours and it was making
yeah,
trouble for another 12.
exactly. It might have been more like 18 and 4, but it was still pretty bad. You know what I mean? So it doesn't take that many hours to cause trouble. So yeah, when I found out, interestingly, I'll tell you, there was kind of two phases. When I found out first, I was really okay and not that upset with it because you hear what you want to hear, right? And so they explained hypomania, which is the good part. And I was like, yeah, that's me. It's great. But I didn't really acknowledge that I had the bipolar depression, right? And my thought is that now that I understand it, I can stop the spiral downwards. And so they actually were like, because I initially went in with this monster headache and nobody could figure it out. And they actually said this pill is going to help the headaches and it'll help the bipolar. You just take more of it. And I said, perfect. Just give me the headache dose. I'll manage the bipolar now that I understand it. Well, about 6 months later, we all realized that wasn't not the right decision. So then I went on the bipolar dose. You know what I mean? I could not handle it without the medication. So at that point, it actually hit me real hard because then it was like, oh, crap. Now I have this medication who's taking away the hypomania and it's actually affecting my work. You know what I mean? Everybody inside my life is telling me, oh, you look more present. They don't even know that something's going on. And they're still making these comments like you seem more present, you seem more calm and this and that. They have no idea what's going on. And inside I'm going, wow, how I just got this promotion. How am I going to do it? I now have 6 hours less a day to do it or 4 hours less a day to do it. You know what I mean? And I had nothing figured out. So that was terrifying. I mean, that was a very big moment in my life where I just needed to, I quit drinking. I started the medicine and I dug deep and tried to figure out like, how can I emulate at least some of what I was doing before? And that's how it started. I picked one or two things and kind of systematized it. And then as I went further along in different turnarounds, I picked another couple of things, and eventually I had this toolbox put together, but it was terrifying at first. I was in a big position. I was a global marketing director traveling to Europe and back. And all of a sudden my whole life changed. So it was extremely, I would say that first day was fine. 6 months later, when I realized that it wasn't fine, that was terrifying.
So here's kind of what I'm interested in. So now it sounds to me like you understood that there was an aspect of this diversity that you actually had maximized on to some extent. So you got familiar with your zone of genius that came with this aspect of this neurodiversity we're talking about. But it almost sounds like you were sad that you couldn't access it anymore. So was there an emotional push and pull between, and I think this is what you call the success or sanity, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, and a lot of people who are bipolar, I'm not sure about the other neurodivergencies, but a lot of people who are bipolar will tell you, like, I decided to get off the medicine because I couldn't access that anymore. Like I needed it. I'll say that I did it a couple times. If I knew I had to work 100 hours next week, I would go off the medicine because I knew that would allow me to work 100 hours next week. Was that healthy? No. Was it sustainable? No. But and when I was doing that, I knew it was wrong. You know what I mean? I knew that was not the right move and it could get me into trouble. And so eventually I had to systematize ways not to do that. So I had to figure out like, okay, why are you going off the medicine? Because you need to think outside the box, because you need to set grandiose goals, because you need to dive really deep into something and you need to hyper focus. And then, okay, so if that's what I'm trying to do, how do I package that in a way that I can do it in a healthy manner. You know what I mean? And that's what
And I think this is sort of the part of the shop talk now that I want to get into. I mean, it certainly sounds like it requires a lot of self-awareness and a kind of almost like a genius thinking to step outside of yourself, to look at yourself and to recognize there's a pattern that occurs when I'm not on my medication. But there's a reliance on this extraordinary skill, the thing that makes you different. So you now wanted to figure out how to replicate that so you could access that. So talk to me about how this whole process started and what is this process?
Yeah. So we call it the HOT system. The HOT system is a hypomanic operational turnaround system. Hypomania, obviously, is the part of bipolar that's good. So you're trying to access that type of thinking, but you don't actually need to be bipolar. So there's several aspects to this, a few of which are usually pretty popular. So I'll kind of talk through those and you can dive into which ones you want. But grandiose goal setting is all about, okay, this under promising and over delivering that everyone preaches, it's for losers. That's not how you get promoted. If I have two people, one promises 6% and they get 9, one promises 25% and they get 22. The 22% is getting promoted every day of the week, right? Like that's not what they teach you, but that is reality. You need to be thinking big and going after these big goals. So that's grandiose goal setting. 80-20 matrix of profitability and 80-20 squared are concepts of the 80-20 that everyone talks about, but nobody actually does. There's only a handful of companies in the country that really do 80-20 well, but 80-20 squared is to take it to the extreme, go even deeper. Top 4% of your business usually drives about 64% of your results. And it ties into the Karelin method for explosive productivity, which is usually one that people really like, but it's basically a way that you manage your calendar in such a way that you're only focused on that 4%. You have to drive your calendar to where you only focus on that 4%. Your calendar does not lie. Whatever's on your calendar are your priorities. And if people really take a good look, what they're going to realize is that their calendar is full of stuff that does not drive the maximum profit per minute, which is what we talk about a lot inside of the HOT system. The other couple that might be interesting are the 3A continuous improvement method, which is about doing 52 small projects in 52 weeks instead of focusing on large continuous improvement projects. And then there's some capacity optimization things that are pretty cool. And then the biggest one probably that drives into bipolar is the orthodoxy smashing. And it's all about thinking outside the box innovation, where you think about all the orthodoxies inside of your industry, the things that people believe are true and never question. And then you smash them and say, if that was not true, what would we do differently? And you play those out and try and figure out where the next innovation for your industry is, because the easiest way to make money is to do something completely different and smash an orthodoxy inside of an old, boring business. That's the easiest way to become a millionaire.
Wow. Let's take this sort of down step by step. So one of the things I think we should ask first is, in an environment where now everything is AI this, AI that. So everybody goes, well, we know we are at the threshold of something amazing. We know AI is what, maybe running at 2% of what its capabilities really are. So how do I apply any kind of system or methodology to understand where anything is going?
Yeah, so AI is actually a great example. So inside of the Karelin method, I think a good thing to think about is, okay, how do we manage productivity in this age, right? So Karelin method is all about activity times efficiency times focus. Okay, so activity is real easy. How many hours do you work? How hard do you work? And so it's easy to tell somebody to work 80 hours, but it shouldn't be necessary. 48 hours is kind of my threshold. 48 hours, you can get a lot done. Now, I used to do 22 hours a day. The efficiency is about how efficient are you with your time. And so this is either about skill building, right? Get better at your job. But that's another thing that's real easy to say, real hard to do, right? Or it's about things like systematizing, like we talk a lot about, automating, which starts to get into the AI, pure AI, which is just things that you can actually push to AI and not do anymore, or take a 6-hour task and make it a 15-minute task. Outsourcing, which is a big thing, right? That helps you get more efficient, or even just killing things, killing activities, killing products, killing customers and really getting strategic about who you're serving, what you're doing with your time. Then the focus is where you really dive deep and you only spend your time on the things that are making you the most money. And so pretty much anything that does not fall into that needs to get pushed into the efficiency bucket. Can I use AI to do that? Can I outsource it to somebody else who's going to use AI to do it? Can I hire a better person that can do that for me? So I'm focusing all of my time on making money, especially for your owners, your founders. You're used to doing everything. I guarantee you, I've run small companies, I've run big companies. You are better off putting those tasks in somebody else's hands and putting the most profitable possible task in your hands all the time. You are going to be better off. I don't care if it costs you another $1,000 that you don't have. Your time is more valuable than spending it doing that other stuff.
How do we get this message across to everybody who's listening right now? Because I see this all the time. I think there's a love story to nobody likes being told that they're micromanagers, but I want to say probably half of the audience listening is a micromanager because they've done everything themselves and they know where the dead bodies are and they know where how what works, but they're not subject matter experts in any one of these categories. How do you tell them?
Yep. And I think the best way, and I know your audience is mostly small business owners and founders and people that are driving their own business. So this is how I would say it. I've done that job, right? I know that job. So please trust that I'm talking to you from a former owner and a current founder. I have seen so many just incredibly skilled directors get up to the director level in big companies and not be able to get out of this micromanage environment where they have to keep doing everything. Those are the people that never, ever get above that, right? And the people that get above it are so good at pushing those tasks to other people or to finding other ways to get those tasks done and to focusing their time on being better at driving profit per minute. Those are the people that go up. When you translate that to small business, it is the exact same thing. I ran a small business 40 hours a week. I bought it, ran it, put systems in place, and we doubled the profit, and I went down to 10 hours a week. That is what you have to do as a small business owner, because what did I do next? Bought another business, started another business. All of a sudden, I had a 5-business portfolio. Do you know what I mean? And then you're making real money. But that can't happen if you're micromanaging everything in the first business. It just can't. And so that's where it's the best way to look at it for folks who like math is it's a math problem, right? If you work 20% more hours and you're 20% more efficient, you're going to get 44% more done. But if you take this third aspect and you say, out of my 50 hours or whatever, I'm going to work on 100 things, then you're spending X amount per thing, right? But if you do it where you say, out of this 50 hours, I'm going to work on 5 things, and these are the 5 things that drive all of my profitability, think about how many more hours you're going to spend on the most profitable thing. And that could be like 400% more hours if you cut out all the noise. Now, all of a sudden, you're 500 to 600% more productive than you were before. And that's how the Karelin method of explosive productivity works. And it sounds silly. It works. If you spend all your time on 5 things instead of 100 things, you will double your profit. I've done it at 4 different companies. Double profit in less than 18 months. And that is the framework that has made the most difference in every one of them.
Talk to me, though, about the messy middle. So I just walked into as a fractional COO into my husband's business, which is a solar battery renewable energy business. Given what's happening here in Los Angeles with the Palisades, we lost our house and a lot of our clients lost their homes. So now we are busier than we've ever been. And so now I'm going in. But boy, when you start cleaning up and you're wrestling things away, it gets messy. Can you tell people it's going to be okay at some and when is it going to be okay?
So usually the messier it is, the more profitable it is to fix. You know what I mean? So because messy inherently means there's the process and the systems aren't in place, right? So I just had a meeting with my team and we're a big business, a 9-figure business, you know what I mean? And I told them we're doing this and I laid it out. And I said, this is going to suck for 6 weeks. And it might suck for 12 if you guys don't get on board. We gotta dive in and realize that the first 6 weeks of this are going to be terrible. But let me tell you what it looks like at the end. I've done this 3 times. Every time it's terrible for 6 weeks. This is what it looked like after 6 months. The 90-minute meeting is 20 minutes. It's complete alignment instead of complete arguments. Everybody understands their role and knows the whole aspect is to spend as few hours as possible to drive as much profit as possible. So they don't spend the other 4 hours arguing with you or coming up with, objections.
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting that you said that. So I've been in it for now 6 weeks, and there was this moment last week where we had the 1-hour meeting that turned into a 90-minute meeting. I really don't like super long meetings. I find them jarring. But there was this point where I had set up a new workflow in the project management software. And then one person that I thought was the least likely to say this said, I recognizing that the workflow doesn't entirely match the tasks that I'm doing. And the sky opened, the angels appeared, God himself's hand came down, and I said, bingo. I said, I am so happy because now you need to meet as a team. And instead of trying to make me happy, you need to take the process and make the process work for the team.
100%. And that's the thing that really is amazing is when you start doing it up here and then the team starts doing it down here, that's when you know you've won, right? So I brought in the old engineering director from the other division I was in. I brought him in to talk to my team about this thing. And I was actually scared. I'm like, I don't know what happened to this process after I left. Do you know what I mean? So we might say it was terrible. But he was the one that was like, it's a 20-minute meeting now. We did change some stuff from Todd. We did XYZ different and he even said, like, Todd micromanaged a little more than we needed to. We were able to zoom out and do a few things differently. It was great. I was so impressed with them that they had gotten it down to a 20-minute meeting. And they're like, yeah, we basically don't argue anymore at all. Like, everyone knows the priorities. This was an engineering prioritization meeting, which is part of the HOT system as well. Making engineering a profit center instead of a cost center, right? Which is really important. And it was just amazing to hear like how they had kind of taken it by the reins and fixed it even further. And that I was the micromanager. But when you can get your team to start thinking that way, the other big one that we do is a 9-box of goals, right? So you have organic growth, you have innovation, and then you have margin growth. And you make 1-year goal, 3-year goal, and a 5-year goal. And we have a raise your hand rule. And the idea is that if you're ever working on anything that doesn't align with one of those 9 boxes, you raise your hand and you demand your manager tells you why you're doing what you're doing. There are going to be times where it's like, we have to, right? So Walmart wants it, blah, blah, blah. But make them allowed to be, proactive and say, does this really align to our goals? And then think about the answer. And if it doesn't, then fix the problem, right? And if it does, educate them on why it does, and they will be a better worker for it. People don't complain about working an extra hour a day because they had to work an extra hour a day. They complain because they had 2 hours of wasted work in the middle of the day, and then they had to work an hour extra. You know what I mean? Nobody cares.
Because nothing was clear.
100%.
I want to kind of go back a little bit and tie this back in your unique way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know that I have a unique way of thinking?
Yes. Okay. So think about it this way. If you're ever saying, or if you're ever hearing somebody say, that's how we've always done it, and it makes you mad. Or
oh my God, don't even get me started on that.
Right. If you ever think about like, well, this is lean, and so that's how we look at things, but it doesn't make sense for your situation. Like if you're thinking outside the box and it's driving you nuts, you have at least a little neurodivergence in you. Doesn't mean you're mentally have an actual illness or disability, but you've got that thing inside you where you can think differently, but the corporate culture tells you not to. They want you to stay in this box, this little sanitized white paper consulting box that everyone's put you in. And it's not where you make money. That's not where you make money. That's where companies slowly slide into stagnation. And, there's this growth area of the business, 20% of companies. There's this crisis area, 20% of the companies who are actively dying. And then there's this 60% in between that are just slowly dying. because they're doing this white paper.
Yeah, IBM comes to mind, right? I mean, a company that just has not been able to change a tiny little bit of its culture. I think that the workforce is like 80% male, and women are primarily in support functions. And it's just a company that's stuck to a culture that's been so outdated and old, and nobody even talks about IBM really anymore in that sense. So what I'm hearing is like when people say to you, you are a breath of fresh air, when you get mad at having to do a budget before you have all the facts, when you get mad that you are being told that's how we always have done it, but nobody can explain you why that is. So that's the one side. Now, as a leader, how do you get people on board? Because we have tons of people that are in corporate or they're working for founders because they have a little bit of good ideas, but after all, they want stability, security, and that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do you deal with that? Because it can't be easy to work with you either when you're a leader like that and your brain just constantly fires.
Yeah, so it's a great question because it's super important, especially for smaller businesses, right? Because your employees don't have the comfort that they might have if they were in a 10,000 person company that maybe, lays off 5% of their workforce a year, but as long as they're not in that, they're okay. They're worried. They're worried that you're going to stay in business. They're worried when your biggest customer threatens to leave. They're worried when you have a supply chain disruption. The best way to get these guys really, really bought in is to make sure that they understand that they're supposed to make as much money as they can every minute. Because if they feel like they're doing it, then they're accountable and they're tied to the results. And they don't worry as much when the biggest customer says this, because they already know that the next 2 biggest customers are here. And this is what we do if we pivot. If they're so bought into the strategy, that's why this 9 box works real well. They know the short term, they know the medium term, they know the long term. And if Walmart leaves some short term, they know what our 3-year plan is, and we've got it there. And I get people pretty deep into financials, probably deeper than they need to be. But it's so that they are all bought in and they understand that the business is okay. And this is what is super important. And what you're doing every day is making a difference. And then they feel like, okay, I can control whether this company's a success. And that helps so much in that small business mindset where it's like, I love what I'm doing, but I don't know if we'll be here in 2 years. I love what we're doing, but I don't know if my job will be the same in 2 years because we're growing and it's going to do X, Y, and Z. Get them involved in the strategy. They don't have to come up with it, but they have to understand it. They have to know what they're doing that's driving the future of the company. That would be my biggest piece of advice. Did that answer the question?
But how do you manage when you see that somebody is not on board? Because in the messy middle, not everybody is willing to go with you all the way. Yep. They can't. So what do you do?
Great question. And we cover team transformation in the book. It's extremely important, or I should say transformation team. There are certain people that are good at transformations and there are certain people that aren't. And people ask, what's the transformation? If you haven't transformed in 3 years, you need to. Like, that's how business works. So everyone's almost always in a transformation. But to answer your question, you have to make those decisions quick. And so I will come in and I will take out half of the leadership team, and not because you have to do it, but because they were not poised to be transformers. Your best person, when you're not transforming, could become your worst person during a transformation because they like the old way. They're married to the old way. You really have to be willing to look at people and say, are they going to be excited about constant change? Are they going to be excited about thinking outside the box and implementing something different? Are they going to be excited about treating customers differently, and that kind of thing? And it's extremely important. The one time I got fired in my life was because I wanted to fire somebody and they made me wait for 9 months, and then we got rid of them, and then they didn't let me backfill for 6 months. And we basically went 15 months out of a 24-month transformation without a key member who was on board. And for 9 of those months, we're fighting against them. And for the other 6, I'm doing that job along with my job, trying to force it along. And that was the one time. And honestly, the transformation worked. They're still making bonuses off of that transformation, but it did not go fast enough. And that team transformation. So now when I coach other people, I tell them, like, unfortunately, that's one of the most important, fastest things you have to do is get the transformation team in place up here. The manager level can be later.
Yeah, no, I see this, especially when you're building a team and you're hiring new people. you may fall back into your old hiring habits and you bring back people in that are actually putting the brakes on because they cannot go fast, or they want the processes and procedures before they can follow them, but they don't participate actively in creating the processes and procedures because it's not their skill set, or that's just not what they are used to. So tell us where we can find you, Todd, and your work, and where do we find the book, and how do we help people to be fast and fearless?
Absolutely. So toddhagopian.com has tons and tons of free resources. I don't sell consulting, so get on there, read it. All these strategies are on there. The Unfair Advantage, Weaponizing the Hypomanic Toolbox, is pre-order on Amazon today. So you can get that there. I have 3 books coming out in the next 15 months. Ping me through the website. Ask me questions. I love talking about this stuff. I will tell you what article to read. I'll give you advice. Just engage with me. I love it. This is what I do for a living. It's so much fun. And I, especially small business owners, because I've been there and I know how many questions there are. So just ping me and let's have a chat.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, Todd. It has been amazing to have you on the show today. I appreciate you and your way of thinking. And until we talk again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
And that is it for us today. So if you are kind of nervous about being different, now you know that that's actually one of your greatest advantages. So go check out all the resources that we are putting in the show notes, and we'll talk again next time. And goodbye. That's it for this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show, Founders of the Future. If you're done playing small and ready to build the future on your terms, subscribe, share, and help us reach more trailblazers like you. And if you're serious about creating, growing, and scaling a business that's aligned with who you are, schedule your Uncovery session at uncoverysession.com. Lead with vision. Move with purpose. Create your future.